Announcing that you thought about doing something that you didn't do is a little bit strange, but hey, it's selling magazines and papers and books, apparently.
Right. We want to get into this new epilogue of Finding Freedom. Of course, the book was released a few months ago, and we devoured it, and a lot of people had a lot to say about it, but now there's some new chapters, and we're learning some new things that have happened since they gave that tell-all interview a few months back. So what surprised you the most in this new epilogue?
I'm going to be a bit of a stick in the mud and say what surprised me the most is how little there was in there that was actually new. I mean, there was loads of stuff kind of bringing everything back to the surface. And if all of these sores had started to heal, well, this book's certainly trying to rip them open again and pour some salt in while they're at it. But in the end, there were these kind of little repeats of some of the stuff. There were bits of extra gossip and conjecture about the things that we've been talking about since that interview and since the book was released, but I don't think there was a massive amount of new information, and so that was perhaps the surprise, that it was re-released like this on this important anniversary moment as well, and yet what was in there, you know, a bit of new gossip, but not a huge amount more. Right.
What was some of the new gossip that kind of stood out to you a little bit?
Well, I think that some of the stuff that came out there was here's the thing, I think that Meghan and Harry say that it's not authorized or official, and so it's not fair to take it as their word. But at the same time, the authors clearly have a very close relationship to certain people who know what those two are thinking, and quotes friends of theirs and sources close to them. And those people are unlikely to speak with the authors of a book like that if it's not with the approval of the people the book's about. And so I think people do assume that it's unofficial, but a bit official. And so the stuff that perhaps surprised me and the stuff that's coming out of there that's new is this idea that they're dragging up that racism allegation again that they made, saying that the palace didn't take ownership of the issue and that was something that was remarkable to them. I think that was a new nugget that's come out, and then dragging that back up again. And then there were bits and pieces about, you know, what they've done over the years since it's been released. I mean, there were also things about the big interview that they did and how their timing was around it, how they decided when to do it, how they felt about it, and the fact that they thought about naming the person that they alleged was racist in the family. I mean, as bits of news go, announcing that you thought about doing something that you didn't do is a little bit strange, but hey, it's selling magazines and papers and books, apparently.
Right, yeah, and we're talking about it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Right, you know, they did say that they decided to do the tell-all interview, you know, pretty much the same day that she found out that her Mail on Sunday lawsuit was decided. So, you know, as soon as that was done, she got on the phone and was like, I'm ready to speak. And Meghan said that she felt very, I guess.
Felt it was cathartic, she said.
Yes,
that's what they said.
Was...
And I have to say, the thing about that bit stuck out to me. So they said they waited for the timing because of the court case with the Mail. And of course, that court case with the Mail was all about one of the things that we hear from them a lot, that they feel their privacy is invaded and intruded upon. That was about a letter that Meghan Markle's estranged father had, and he released to the paper some of the words that she had said in the letter. And she then made a copyright claim, I think it was, against the newspaper for publishing it. Now, that's fine. That kind of squares with their image of wanting privacy and wanting the press to go away. But then they waited until that court case was finished, and the very moment it was, they decided to go and do this massive interview that was then televised around the world. Those two things don't really sit well together for me and for loads of people. That's not someone looking for privacy. That's someone waiting for their privacy-related court case to end and then jumping straight back into the spotlight.
Yeah, the timing was a little bit interesting, to say the least. And they also talk about, you know, Prince Harry flying back for Prince Philip's funeral. And obviously there was a lot of tension with the family. This was the first time he's really seen them. You know, there was some reports that he had sent a letter to Prince Charles before that, but they say in the book that that did not happen. But they did have a conversation, a brief conversation while he was there.
Yeah, and also they say that several members of the royal family were understood to have been quite pleased that Meghan stayed in California because they didn't want a circus or they didn't want the Duchess creating what they called a spectacle. So that's quite, I mean, suppose that is quite explosive as a claim, but again, not that surprising. I think who of us didn't know that perhaps the royal family didn't want Meghan there after everything that had been going on. And in a funeral for somebody so much loved, not just in the family, by the Queen herself and by the nation as well, a funeral where COVID rule meant that a tiny number of people could be there. And you can remember that funeral, it was actually very poignant because of how small it was, and yet it had all that pomp and circumstance that surrounds royal family events. It was spectacular to watch and very moving, even for people who aren't particularly royalists.
Right.
And I think the distraction of having Meghan there, who, you know, wasn't that close to the Duke of Edinburgh as far as we can tell, because I mean, she hadn't even been in the family that long. Not saying that to you know, disrespect her, it's just how it was. So given, I think it was 30 or something people were allowed to be there, I'm not surprised that Meghan wasn't necessarily high up on the list of guests, and I think they did the right thing for her to stay home. And of course, also there was the baby, and so
of course.
I think that issue meant it would have been pretty much impossible anyway for her to go.